Happy Sunday, Andrew.
Happy Sunday.
Whether it's the 23rd Sunday of Ordinary Time or the 15th Sunday after Pentecost, it's good to be Catholic.
Oh, yeah. Or the third Sunday of Ordinary Time. Or the
Yeah, well, I
15th
was
Sunday.
15th Sunday after Pentecost in the old calendar.
Oh, you're saying today's both of those days?
It is both of those days.
Ah, yeah.
And some
Okay.
priests had to prepare two homilies on account of that.
Oh,
But not
yeah.
this one, because I only had the Latin Mass today. So
Oh, interesting. How'd that happen?
I'm on the rotation now with my new job as bishop secretary.
Oh, okay. Is that usually what Bishop Secretary does?
In our diocese, yes.
But do you work at the cathedral or somewhere else?
Well, during the week, I'm chained to a desk,
Nice.
but yeah. So when I don't have anything I need to do for the bishop on a Sunday, I make myself available to do the Latin Mass at the local Catholic high school, and for 2 weeks in a row here in September, I get to do just that. So
Oh, nice. That's pretty good.
it is, it's a good
How
time.
many of those do you do on a Sunday?
Just one. One
Okay.
is enough for the Fargo area.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot of children there, though, so we'll see if in 20 years that's still sufficient.
Sounds like it.
As, those traditional Catholics, they sure like babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we have at the cathedral in Metuchen, they have like five masses.
Mhm.
There's one at 7:30, one at what is it? 9, 10:30, noon. And I found out today they also have one at 5 in the morning, which I didn't
Oh
even know about.
boy, I don't think I've ever done mass that early before.
Yeah,
That's pretty early.
it's like Rorate Caeli every week.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Up here in North Dakota, a Rarate Cheli Mass in December would start at like 8:30
Hmm.
because we're super far. I mean, you guys aren't that much farther south than us, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, closer to the ocean though.
Does that make a difference with the sunrise?
Uh, no, I guess not, but it does make a difference with temperature.
It does, absolutely. Yes. Come visit me in January and you'll know all about that.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
did you do any singing today?
yes, I sang for three masses. I was the chant guy.
The chant guy.
Yeah, we do Novus Ordo, but we do some chants between like the introit and the communion.
Hmm.
So the normal choir director wasn't there today, so he hired me to do
Oh, you got paid and everything.
it.
You
Yeah, I
must
guess so.
you must be getting good at it then.
Yeah, well, I guess so. Yeah, that's what they say.
Or at
But
least you're showing up consistently.
yeah, I was
Because
gonna
if you're not,
say half the battle in Latin Mass is finding someone to do the music. So
hmm hmm yeah, there's some
the
weeks that we have to do a low mass because we don't have enough musicians.
yeah, exactly.
And then
So
today the MC was asking me, well, I'm not sure if we're going to have enough servers to do the incense. And it's like, we're not doing the incense. I don't know how to do that yet.
yeah,
And Novus Ordo, it's really easy. You just pop incense there and swing it however you want. But
right,
the
yeah.
old Latin mass, it's like you will swing it exactly like this while reciting a psalm. It's like I'm not there yet. Give me a little time. We'll figure it out.
So you do low mass then?
I could do a high mass. You don't have to have incense. The
Yeah.
incense is optional at a high
Oh,
mass.
right.
So,
We've had high mass at some places where I see the altar servers are still learning. So, the one guy holding the thuribles, like looking around, like, who do I swing this at next? It's like the
mhm,
offertory part where there's like all of them are swinging it at each other at all different places. So
Yeah, yeah, it's a high bar. It's definitely a high
yeah,
bar. They had a guy. I had two servers today, and one of them was the MC that we always have. So he's telling me what to do sometimes,
yeah.
just because I haven't done this that often.
That's
And
what MCs are for.
he was also giving a lot of instruction to the guy who was training in today. So it was, it was nice that I didn't have to do that training because I'm still learning how to do this, and that would be quite a lot to also
Yeah.
have to supervise altar servers.
Yeah, for sure.
Got
It's
enough on my plate. Well,
so
I remember
complicated.
when I was a
Yeah.
seminarian, the rebellious young seminarians that we would go to the local priestly fraternity of St. Peter Parish
Ooh.
and enable them to be able to do a solemn mass with a deacon and a subdeacon. I
Uh-huh.
remember the first time that I was a subdeacon, the main celebrant was just constantly whispering instructions to me because I was pretty lost.
Yeah, it's complicated. I mean, I even the low mass is complicated.
Yeah.
So I don't even know. Somebody gave me a handbook for like how low mass altar servers work, and I'm like, wow, this is a lot to remember. I don't even know what high mass is like. I have no handbook for that. So,
Well, it's more complicated because you have more moving parts in a high mass.
right.
So with a low mass, you'll have one server, and that one server will do everything. So the nice thing about getting trained in on the higher masses, right? So like my first experience was as a subdeacon, is I only had that little chunk I needed to learn.
Hmm.
So it's actually easier to start with a high mass if you're just doing one of the very simple jobs.
Hmm.
But if you're the low mass and you're the only altar server, then there's less
Yeah.
going on in general, but all of the serving is on you now.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think there's trade-offs when you make the liturgy more complex. You also create parts for easier jobs.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause I remember I used to go to the Assumption Grotto in Detroit, Michigan. And they would have every Sunday, they would have six servers who their entire job was to just carry out torches during the consecration. And these
Hmm.
were their youngest servers, so they had a very simple job for the 7, 8 year olds. It's like you guys just walk out like this and you kneel right here and then you kneel there for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Hello,
Wow.
Laura.
Hello, how are you?
We're having a grand old time talking about the Latin Mass
Sounds good,
because
Are
it's
you
Sunday night,
familiar?
and what else are we going to talk about?
I guess.
Yeah.
You got anything on your mind today, or are you just saying hi?
I do. I am exceedingly furious.
Uh-oh.
So I
Uh-oh.
thought now might be a good time for me to hop on YouTube, and maybe if anyone asks me a question, if it triggers me to be angry about that, I'll just answer it really angrily, which doesn't happen often. So if you want to try me, go ahead.
I don't want to, but if you really needed to get
Fair
off
enough.
your chest, you're free to just share things instead of making me tiptoe.
The thing I'm exceedingly furious about, I can't really talk about because I don't want to diss any of my relatives on YouTube. So it's not a Catholic thing. It's just a thing that I'm mad about.
Oh,
Um, yeah,
okay.
but then I was kind of tearing it up in the forum on BOM today because I don't know, did you see that?
I saw a little bit of it.
Yeah, I get annoyed when people in the Protestantism channel talk as if like the Catholic Church just like admitted Luther was right, and they all kind of chuckle about it.
Really?
Now,
When did that happen?
I mean, the
well,
confusion results partly from the fact that like not everything he thought or did was wrong. Because has there ever been a person who was wrong about everything?
that's how
Like,
you
not
really
that I
troll
know
a
of.
teacher is you get every answer wrong on a true and false test,
Yeah, that's pretty difficult.
because that's the same as getting every answer right.
Anyway, I think the fact that he's not considered to be wrong about every single thing he ever said or did is confusing people. And they
Well,
don't
there's
understand that there are some non-negotiable things where he was beyond the pale and he always will
yeah,
be.
yeah. Right. Recant the two; the others can be resolved by applying distinctions.
Right.
That's what Cardinal Cajetan said to him. It's like we can massage 93 out of 95 of these theses into orthodoxy, but
Pretty much.
two of these have to go, and then it only got worse from there. I think some of this confusion is coming from high places when the
Ah.
Vatican is putting Martin Luther's face on a postage stamp in the
Hmm.
year 2017.
Mm-hmm.
That is a signal to people, and that's you know they're allowed to be confused about that. That and changing the supposedly timeless liturgies. That's what they'll point
Mm-hmm.
at. So, so one of these things. Yes, I have one relative who's been wrong about everything. It's rather stunning, actually. The flattening of the world makes people right and wrong universal and absolute.
Wow. Okay.
I remember I never even met this guy, but hearing about some of my friends dealing with this guy who, whenever they tried to give him good advice, he would always do the exact opposite. And
Mm.
so they tried giving him bad advice, and he just took that advice. So
No.
some people just some people just have a knack, they've got a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm angry about a number of things. I'm potentially angry about more things if anyone wants to bring more things up.
I don't.
Okay, that's fine. Were you guys all having a jolly time and like feeling good? My
Well,
reigning of parade.
I'm feeling good no matter what you do because I'm full of
Okay.
steak and beer right now.
Well,
So
that's good. I mean, I had some nice
Nice.
chili for dinner. It didn't help much.
I went and got to Texas Roadhouse with another priest tonight. Caught
Ooh.
up a little bit. He took my old job, so
Yeah, that's nice.
just seeing how he's doing. So
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 is
I'm
your
gonna
old job, is that the one at the that big church that was being built?
yeah, Holy Cross.
So you don't work there anymore?
Nope, I am now the bishop's secretary and director of the liturgy office.
Okay.
Okay, I
So
just
I
reminded myself I need to pack up the chili I was eating, so I'll be back presently.
okay,
Okay.
Laura. Oh, Mark knows what a good dinner is, good supper, Texas Roadhouse. Yeah,
Nice.
it was you know, if you can mess up a steak, that's like being Mark's relative here. You shouldn't be able to mess up a nice steak. I bet you your relative couldn't cook a steak either, could they?
Crazy.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. So how's architecture school going, Andrew?
Good. We just started um, on last Thursday, and we immediately got our next project and went to the site and visited it. And we have an assignment due tomorrow, all about analyzing the site and everything. So, yeah, we're designing a train station.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it going to be one of them high-speed rails?
It's a light train. Light
A
train.
light
Light, what
train?
is it called?
Light rail?
Light rail? Yeah.
Okay. Got to be honest, I've ridden on one of those things before, and I don't know what makes it so light.
I guess it's just smaller than other rails.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Is it like, yeah, maybe that just refers to the gauge on the tracks. It's not designed to carry really heavy rails. That could be it.
I think the gauge is the same, but
No, even
um,
on like full size train tracks, they have different gauges. It's like how thick the steel on top is.
oh,
So that
okay.
tells you how heavily loaded down a train can be.
I thought you meant like the distance between the rails.
No, that's pretty standardized actually. No,
Yeah.
it's the thickness of the steel on there. That's
Hmm.
the gauge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so these trains are like they're not as they're not designed for like regular commuter trains. It's more for something smaller that are
Yeah,
kind of
it's
like
like
commuter
smaller
trains.
trains running more frequently. I think that's usually the
Yeah,
way it ends up working. They
yeah.
had one in Minneapolis, and I rode it a handful of times. One time was after a football game, and this
Hmm.
was between the Metrodome's roof collapsing and them building US Bank Stadium. And so it was an outdoor game at the Minnesota Gophers Stadium in December. It was pretty cold by the end of that. It was 12 degrees outside.
I
But
bet.
the Vikings absolutely destroyed the Giants, so it was a good night.
Nice.
Alrighty, Laura, this chili has been safely ensconced in the refrigerator.
Yeah, the chili is safe until
It is
tomorrow.
it is currently dyeing the inside of one of your plastic Tupperware containers red permanently.
Joke's on you, Father. It's in a glass one. Hmm.
Oh, nice, nice. Got the glass Pyrex. That's actually really nice stuff.
Yeah,
Mostly because you can always find a lid for it.
yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That sounds useful.
Yeah, why couldn't they standardize Tupperware lids the same way that they standardized rails?
Yeah,
Hmm.
good question. Maybe we could do that.
So you two were talking about the Latin Mass before I jumped on?
We were.
What were you saying about said Mass?
We were talking about right before you came on, we were talking about how learning to serve it can be different. And like if you've got, let's say, a high mass, you would think that would be more difficult to serve, but because you break up the server's job into more parts, it's actually easier to learn that way.
Hmm. You
So
mean
like
because there are more servers?
and there's and so like with a low mass, if you only have one server, that one server has to do everything.
Hmm.
So even though there's less going on in total, that one server's on for all of it. Whereas at a
Hmm.
high mass, even if you're doing incense, you can break up the jobs into smaller pieces, and
Hmm.
then the lads only have to handle maybe one job instead of all of the jobs.
Are
So
you allowed to have more than one server at a low Mass?
I think so. Yeah, you
I
could. You could.
haven't been to enough of them to have really thought about that.
I've
Me
s-
neither.
I've seen one with like 10 servers.
A low
A low
mass?
Mass?
Um, I don't know. I don't remember. It was a couple years ago.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah, actually, I think it was a low mass.
I guess you could add torches, 6 torches, and
It was pretty weird. It was like, it was a Rorate Cheli,
mhm.
and it's in a place where there's like a big college, so I guess there's a lot of young guys there. But it was my first Latin Mass, and I'm like, there's a lot of altar servers up there. They're just like walking around, following the priest, like a crowd behind him.
That's awesome.
Wow, there's not that many in Nova Shorto.
No good candidate will be turned down.
Oh
We
man.
will find a job for all of you. Well, I was I was emceeing for the bishop. We were in a town and we were installing a pastor. And the pastor there had like 8 altar servers for me. And so it was sort of like, oh man, I gotta find jobs for all these guys. And so I did, I had like, 2 of them with the bishop's hat and the stick. I had that, all settled down. And like, okay, you two are setting the altar and you're on the book, and you two you're incense and you're holding the little incense boat. And so yeah. So
Oh.
you find ways to put people to work
Hmm.
if you don't want to say no to everybody. And
Hmm.
it is actually supposed to be an image of the heavenly kingdom and the ministering spirits. And book of Hebrews, letter to the Hebrews says that there were thousands upon thousands of angels ministering to God in festal gathering.
Right.
So there, you should have 10 service at a low mass, and I'll
All
be the
right.
one to say it.
Fine.
Nice.
Looks like we got a little bit of Philip
Hi,
Nickerson
Philip.
action here. He's saying hi to all of you, so you all have to wave back.
Hi, Philip.
Hello.
Andrew's waving.
Andrew's waving with his mouth.
Spirit.
Yes.
Mark's relatives are good at ruining things. I'm just reading the
Yeah.
comments.
Yeah. No, he's been going over some of the drama with his parents' inheritance today and
Oh,
lawyers and estates and
that
all of
feels
that.
familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm really glad that when my grandma passed away about a decade ago, that my dad and my uncles and aunt were able to figure it out.
Mm.
There were some bumps along the way, but in the end, they all figured it out. So
Mm.
it was real ugly to see families get torn. And yeah, you get torn apart over money. It's just a stupid thing to. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
the problem in my family. The problem in my family would be whether there will be any money left to fight over. But I digress.
You've got a house, right?
I have a house, yeah.
Okay. Are you talking about your parents then?
Yeah, that's
Okay. Okay. Well,
all I'm saying. Anyway,
okay.
moving
It's
on.
probably all you need to say
Yeah.
before this
All right.
gets brought before the lawyers in court, in
Anything you say or do
no, I'm
family
I'm
court.
on
just
live stream?
no, I just don't want to offend God by
Oh,
breaking any commandments.
it's also good to not offend God.
Yeah.
And my parents say that their goal is to really not have very much stuff left over by the time that they depart this earth.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be nice if they pull that off. And then have a clearly articulated will.
Uh-huh.
They've already told me that I have medical power of attorney,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes a lot of sense because I'm the only one of my siblings that has 3 credits of graduate level biomedical ethics.
Whoa. Nice.
Yeah. So I guess I'm the most qualified.
Yeah.
I would say
Cool.
so.
Now, Laura, did you say you had a kid going off to college this year, or did I
Yes.
remember that wrong?
Yes, she has gone.
She's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's having a good time.
Is she calling regularly?
Actually, yes.
Okay.
And
I think
sharing
sometimes the
photos and
daughters the
updating
daughters are a
things.
little better about that than the sons
Could be.
sometimes. But I had it. I don't know who told me this, but somebody said once you leave home, call your mother every week. And I just
Mm.
saluted and said yes, sir. And so most every week since I graduated high school, if
Mm.
so my mom doesn't have to wonder. She
Yes.
knows.
It's very good.
Yeah. So I'm glad your
Hello,
daughter's
Corey.
not oh, we got Corey too. Everybody, Corey is also saying hello. You must wave.
Hello. I'm
And
waving.
Andrew will wave. Andrew will wave manually. Oh,
Oh
When
yeah, hold on.
when
oh,
the light changes around the edge of the A, that's him waving.
yeah.
See, like that.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely doesn't have anything to do with sound waves.
No.
So if you don't mind me asking, did you cry at all when you dropped your kid off at college?
Well, I wasn't there when she got dropped off because I had to work. Because I teach at a school and my school was just starting up.
Mm,
Uh, so no.
no
Good
tears. Okay.
answer.
No. I don't think anyone in my family cried when I went away either.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not
I'm
really
just
like that.
curious. I'm just curious because some people get very emotional about these things, but it's not
Yeah,
universal.
yeah.
And
No. No, I come from the kind of family where it's more like, yeah, get out of here. So, yeah.
that was kind of the treatment I got. My
Yeah.
my mom posted on my Facebook page. Like, good luck in Detroit, Eric. If you need anything, just give us a call and we'll pray for you.
Nice.
Uh-huh.
which wasn't actually how things worked out, but it was pretty funny
Yeah.
and immortalized forever on my Facebook page. So
Hmm. Do you have Facebook still?
I do,
Mm.
unfortunately,
Is it
like the
required for your
stuff.
job?
No, I
Or your
just
family?
no. I mean, some of it, it's like every once in a while, I'll see one of my classmates had a baby, and it's happy to see the baby, but usually it's just a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Andrew, I suppose you're too young to even have a Facebook.
I did have one at some point,
Okay.
but yeah, I got rid of it.
May as well.
Corey says that daughters increase a father's life expectancy. I wonder why.
Oh, because she takes care of him when she gets old and makes sure he goes to the doctor and stuff.
Maybe.
There was a priest in our diocese who had retired, and he was just like refusing to go to the doctor. You know, he's like, "Oh, I'll get better. I'll get better. I'll get better." And finally, these women that he was friends with, you know, like made him go, and then he was in the hospital for like 8 months and was super sick. You know, he would have just died if he had not had these women looking after him. So that's probably it.
Could be.
Meanwhile, the sons are like, "Huh? You were sick?"
Ah, right. Okay. Makes sense then.
So Corey, that's what you've got going on. And Corey might have a brand new daughter at home.
Oh, yeah?
I'm not sure. Might be why he's just joining via text tonight. Yeah.
Hmm.
So anyway, Corey, confirm for us if you've got a child in your arms, and then we'll know why you're not tuning on to say hi. Laura, does
Oh,
anybody in
wait.
your family hunt?
Um, no, not currently. I know my dad did when he was a kid, though.
Okay.
Yeah, he got a rifle when he was like 14 for his birthday or something. And his family had like hunting dogs and stuff.
Okay.
Oh, Corey says affirmative. He does have a new daughter or
Actually, he
something.
said affirmatron.
Affirmatron?
Yeah. No. What he affirms is that his wife is now a matron, a mother.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good one.
Huh.
Oh, he's typing with one finger. Poor guy.
It means he's got a baby in the other hand. That's winning right there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Probably
oh,
not.
another girl.
Well, he's
You're
gonna
gonna
live a long time.
Yeah, girls are all I have.
gonna live
Uh,
forever.
it doesn't say anything about mother's life expectancy, I don't think.
Well, married women have a shorter life expectancy than unmarried women. And if you ever see a really old nun, you know that's what's going on.
That's it.
And
Is it nuns or is
unmarried
it
men,
just unmarried?
is it what?
Is it nuns or is it just unmarried?
Just unmarried women. And
Oh,
then married men have a longer life expectancy than unmarried men, which leads us to the conclusion that married men leech life out of their wives.
oh, that's the conclusion.
It seems pretty escapable, inescapable to
Sounds
me.
about right. Oh, we're
Oh,
boring.
Mark's accusing us of being boring. We'll
Well,
put
if
some
Father
interest.
Eric
we
were
gotta
more
talk about
willing to make
something
me angry about things,
philosophical
maybe this would
and
be more interesting.
complicated and
Make you more angry about things. Should I? Alrighty, here we go.
we could talk about what was it we talked about last time? Condescending.
Yeah, condescending. You want me to be more condescending to you, don't you?
Ooh, do you want Philip to come on and talk about going to a church picnic?
Oh, yeah. Church picnics occasionally are awesome, but sometimes they're lame. go both ways.
What picnic?
All right, do it, Philip.
Corey wants it too, and
Mhm.
presumably the other 11 people watching this.
We could make
Well,
it
I
a
don't
bit
know,
more
Mark. Would
interesting.
Mark be less bored if we had that?
I don't know. I'm not here for Mark. I'm here for me. So
We could play bingo. Maybe
I'm
that'll
just
make
a.
things interesting.
I don't have a gambling license, Mark or Andrew. We can't do that.
Oh, okay.
Bingo's big money in some places.
Hmm.
Cranking up his Commodore 64.
Oh,
I think you're going to run out of the 12 bytes of RAM pretty quickly. I don't know how many bytes of RAM a Commodore 64 actually had. Maybe it was 2 kilobytes of RAM.
Hmm.
Mark, put in the chat how many kilobytes of RAM a Commodore 64 would have had.
You know,
now he's interested. I never know what Mark is going to find interesting.
is the topic of what Mark finds interesting interesting?
64 kilobytes of RAM. Wow. That was a lot for the mid 80s. I mean, now you couldn't buy a 64 kilobyte stick, but you know.
I guess that's why it's called 64.
Well, I thought they would have had a 64-bit processor in there. And maybe it was also that.
Wow, that's okay.
The bits don't really mean that much.
Now
I
I'm kind of
mean,
bored too, even though I'm on here.
the 32-bit was pretty popular.
Does us talking about computers in your presence make you angry, Laura?
Maybe a little, yeah. Do you want to hear about
Have
some
you
other things that make me angry
ever
in
Yeah.
church? Want to hear about reasons why I get angry in church?
Oh, actually, I do.
Do you? Okay. One of the things that makes me angry in church is when people say amen.
instead of amen?
Yes.
Hmm. A
Why
lot
do
of
you
people
hate the
do it.
South, Laura?
Sorry?
Why do you hate the South?
No, it's okay to say amen in a revival tent in Alabama. That's fine. Don't say it in a Catholic church, especially if you're not in the South. There.
I mean, they say it in the North too, so
What? They say what in the North? Amen?
yeah.
Right, that's the problem. They shouldn't be doing that.
That's for
Amen.
those Southern people.
Amen. I don't understand how that happened
Amen.
to Catholics, because the church I grew up in, which was Lutheran Church in Illinois, we all said amen all the time. I have a
Uh,
feeling that when the Mass got translated into English, people overcompensated. They were like, whoa, the Mass is in English now. We got to make sure that we're pronouncing everything like super Englishly. And then amen sounded more English than amen. Maybe amen sounded too Latin to people who were like, we got to be super English.
The Latin's got those nice open
Maybe
vowels,
that's what happened.
you know.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
see,
would
Philip says
think
it's amen.
I would think with me living near New York, I would hear a lot more amen.
Yeah, but not if people have decided they have to say amen.
Yeah, true.
Okay, what else is there that makes me angry?
People talking in church before a wedding, that made me angry yesterday.
Oh, yeah? Oh, were they just like chatting
Blah
away
blah 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 blah
normally?
blah 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 blah
Uh-huh.
blah 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 blah.
Was it people who aren't usually in church, maybe?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. That was it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't like that either.
but not
Probably
my
common.
house. Not my house. I can't go in there and start laying down rules that the master of the house hasn't laid down. So
It's happened in a lot of places with people who are usually there too.
Okay, here's another thing that makes me angry. Church bulletins where the font is Comic Sans.
oh, I mean that should just make you laugh, right? This is 100%.
No, it makes me cry
100%.
out of anger.
I think we are missing the opportunity of Comic Sans
Oh?
because it's not a serious font.
Yes.
Nobody would ever look at a Comic Sans font and say, "Wow, this is some pretty serious business here." And so my proposal for years now is that this Comic Sans font be relegated to the universal indicator of sarcasm.
Okay.
right? So you could go on to Twitter and you could want to write a really sarcastic post, and you want to make sure that the smooth brains who are reading it understand it. And so you just hit the little S tag, and then it comes in
sarcasm.
Comic Sans,
Uh-huh.
and then everybody be like, oh, I can't possibly take this seriously. It's written in Comic Sans.
Interesting.
And what that would also mean is that nobody would ever use it in a serious application ever again.
Okay.
And so that would make
Yay,
both
it's
of us
Philip.
happy. One, we would always have a reliable way to gesture towards sarcasm over the internet. And B, nobody would ever use Comic Sans seriously ever again. Speaking of serious people, hello, Philip.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, Philip. Have you come to talk about old processor architecture?
No, I hope he's going to talk about a picnic. And I don't think Philip is ever very angry, so I look forward to hearing him be content and at peace about whatever picnic he went to.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was really cool. It was put on by the Knights and the Ladies Auxiliary. So I got to work the hot dog barbecue, which was awesome.
Those ladies know what they're doing. They just put the guy in charge of grilling.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I didn't
Not
get to
hard
be on
to
the,
do.
yeah, I didn't get to be on the burgers this time, but that's fine. That was fine with me. No, it was really cool. I mean, all this stuff is new to me, right? So it's all very exciting. Like there's some controversy going on in the church, and I'm just tickled by it, and everybody's sad.
Want me to come up there and make everyone angrier about it? I can do that right now.
Well, I don't know.
Spreading
Maybe
your
more.
anger like fairy dust over the whole of Nova Scotia.
Pretty much, yeah.
No, it was really good because I mean, there's a Saturday mass and a Sunday mass, and I work the Sunday morning mass now, so I don't get to see the Saturday people. And there is some crossover, but not a lot. And this is my whole thing is to meet people, right? Like, I mean, I got into being a Christian by listening to people's stories, and it's still the most powerful thing for me. So, no, it was really good. They had Mi'kma'ki dancers there and drummers. Those are the indigenous people around here.
Hmm.
So that was really cool. And then there was like 4 other performers and bands doing their country music and gospel songs and stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, they had lots of stuff for the kids and cotton candy and snow cones and all that. So
Yeah, you got to get this stuff in before you have to go inside for the winter.
well, it's really not that bad in Nova Scotia because we're a temperate climate.
Okay.
Like we're kind of close to how like Massachusetts is, like just a little bit colder. So at least my part of Nova Scotia anyway. You go up to Cape Breton, it's a little different.
Okay.
I mean, it really, from what I hear, it's very similar to the Scottish Highlands for weather. Well, actually, they get a lot of snow, so maybe not so similar. But yeah, no, it was good. It's also good lately because I'm meeting more people, so I'm getting like the backstories on the parish. Because when people talk about something like they're upset at the pastor, or they have a problem with somebody else, they don't talk about it in a gossipy way. They talk about it like family members. So like I've never heard anybody, well, not anybody, there's a few people that
That's good.
get angry, but mostly it's like family member talk. So I got to learn a lot today about why there's groups of people that are quite sensitive to certain changes that have happened since the new pastor came in last year.
Hmm.
So it just kind of fills out the story for me,
Hmm.
which is good. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a new pastor as well. So, yeah, that's interesting because there are always some things that people are going to be sensitive to.
Yeah.
And the new pastor can't always predict what they're going to be or why.
No, no, not at all. Yeah. No, it's funny. They had one pastor there years ago. He actually was in the parish I was formed at in the city. This guy would replace once in a while, like the other pastors if they're or the other priests if they were away. And he was actually the first person I gave my first. Well, he was the priest I gave my first confession to after my baptism, and I was so nervous going in, and I had a big list of things I was going to confess, and we just ended up talking for about a half an hour and laughing. Like he was so good, like one-on-one. It was awesome. But apparently, when he was a pastor, he was very dictatorial
Mm.
and rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. So it was good when they were telling me the story because they were saying like that isn't his gift, like that wasn't good. But one-on-one,
Mm.
or like with sick people and stuff, like he that's his gift. Like he's brilliant at it. So
Hospital chaplain.
that's what he is.
Okay.
Interesting.
See,
He's
Bishop's
a
not
hospital
dumb.
chaplain now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Cool.
I just love all those stories. Like I was talking to my wife about it, and she's like, "That's kind of gossipy, and it's kind of putting them down." I said, but it's not. It's not to me anyway,
Hmm.
because I mean, I don't have certain gifts. No matter how much I want them, I don't have them. So it's better to, well, for me right now, to figure out what those gifts are, and then kind of just lean into them. And the more for
Hmm.
me, the more I discover what those gifts are, the more they're revealed to me, kind of thing,
Hmm.
a little bit. So
Nice.
yeah, I don't know. It's all new. It's all exciting. Even the bad stuff is exciting. Yeah,
Yeah, you have like a permanently good attitude,
yeah.
as far as I can tell.
Well, I came
You
from
haven't seen his diary, Laura.
Okay.
the only thing that's ever seen anything I've ever written down is my wood furnace.
Do you have like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde existence where
I
you
don't.
seem really nice
No, I
in
was
some forms and then at night you change into something else? All right, what?
no, I was a
No,
happy
okay.
person before becoming a Christian. Like I was never in a crisis.
Mm.
And it was really hard to explain to people when I was coming to them. It's like, well, okay, what's going on with you then? Like, are you getting divorced? Are you dying? It's like, are you unhappy with this? Are you an alcoholic? It's like, no, I'm really good. I just I'm just falling in love with Jesus.
Are you trying to get out of the mob? Is that what this is?
Yeah. No, but the dark side is just how, like, they talk about, like, atheists think this and other people think that. It's when you really don't care, like you absolutely don't care. And I didn't. Like it took decades to get there. And what I've been discovering lately, even though I am where I am now, there's still residuals there.
Mhm.
There's still residuals that are going to take a long time to kind of burn away still. Yeah. Did anybody
Yeah.
see Bishop Barron talking to Ethan Hawke and his daughter? It was one of the best conversations I've listened to in a long time, like any conversation I've listened to in a long time. Because Ethan Hawke and Bishop Barron were really grooving with each other in the conversation. And they started talking about that you don't, like, you not only have to burn off your sins, you have to burn off your virtues.
Oh, uh-huh.
And I thought,
I can see that.
what? I've never heard
Mm.
that before. Because
Mm.
lately I've been thinking about my sense of humor. Like, I see it kind of as a virtue, but there's also times I use my sense of humor and it's not the best time to do it, or there's a serious situation coming up and I just kind of like I laugh it off.
Hmm.
So I'm like, okay, that's not good. It's actually not good to just laugh things off. Like I actually
Hmm.
have to be a serious adult now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes
yeah.
sense. Yeah.
And that's the thing about there's except for love of God and love of neighbor for the sake of God, there's nothing in this world that is just good,
Mhm.
and you just need more of it. Love of God, obviously, faith, hope, and love, as much of that as you can get. That's got to be the best. Um, and so it's a matter of, I don't know. I'm not sure I like the phrasing "burning off the virtues,"
Mhm.
but
Yeah, I don't know
maybe
about that.
I think I get what you mean though.
yeah, it's more like making sure we are we're putting things in their appropriate place.
Yeah. It might give us some context. I've never read anything by this author, but they were talking. It was all about Flannery O'Connor
Oh.
because um, Ethan Hawke and his daughter made a movie about her.
Oh,
They were
okay.
really going deep into her, and then other authors like that were also around her time period and stuff. So, but
Hmm.
reference to some from some author or something. So,
No, Flannery O'Connor. I don't think she would have. She was a Thomist, you know. She wouldn't have talked like that. I don't think.
No, but I get what that means. It's because there are virtues you have that are sort of natural virtues, right? They're existing in like more of a natural state and less of a just like the Holy Spirit is flowing through you kind of state, right? Like there are talents and ways of intelligence and stuff that you just kind of naturally have and you develop them through your life, and you can you can develop a certain pride in them, and you can come to rely on them in a way that might detract from relying on God, and you can I don't know, they can hinder you from doing certain things, or they can kind of become ossified or something, right? If those virtues aren't, if you haven't like sort of offered those virtues to God and allowed him to do what he will with them, as it were, right? If they're things that you're holding on to because they seem like they're part of you and they're yours, right? Isn't that kind of the idea, Philip?
yeah, that is the idea. Yeah, you just like Bishop Barron did mention something about that, if I think right, or somebody else did that I was listening to. But
The
yeah,
thing
that's exactly it. Yeah.
when we find ourselves in a situation where something new is being called out of us,
Mm.
right? Um, the temptation is always to go back to a place that's comfortable, something that we know how this works.
Hmm.
But if that's not is what is called for in the situation, then going back to the comfortable thing, the we'll say laughing it off if that's what you're comfortable, lightening the mood with a joke.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's actually a really good thing, and it's great to have the ability to do that. But other times you gotta treat the situation with the gravity that it deserves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Chino,
so when you're over relying on, let's say, your virtues that you do have at expense of the virtues that you're supposed to develop, then you're taking something good out of the world that you're supposed to be building up inside of you.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Yeah,
So
going to Chino was very good for me in that way, that it put me into kind of a pressure situation where I still, I mean, I'm going to be doing this all my life, but figuring out who I am, not who I want to be, because I really, really admire like smart people that can talk about the higher things. I'm just not one of them. So I had two main jealousies when I was in Chino I was kind of dealing with. I was kind of jealous of wanting to be like the smart people, right? But the good jealousy I had was like the workers that were there in the kitchen and cleaning the bathrooms. I was like, that's me. I want to be them. I want to be doing that right now,
mhm, mhm.
you know? So it was that struggle within me was like, which way am I going here? Like, who am I? Like, how many more videos do I need to watch? How many more books can I read? And I don't have time to read now, and I'm not well read, like, at all. Plus, I found out during the lectures, I'm really not that interested in this stuff.
The thinky talky stuff.
Yeah, like this, I pick out the relationship stuff that
Yeah.
sparks me,
Hmm.
you know. But the thinky talky stuff is like that's interesting, and I love that people around me are excited by it. I'm excited for them, but I'm like, I don't have that passion for that.
Yeah, I'm interested in some aspects of it and others not so much. I think what I'm interested in is reframing things that make in a way that causes them to make more sense to people who are around now.
Mhm.
So anything that kind of hits that spot for me, I'm interested in. But yeah, there are other things people talk about in this little corner that I'm just not that interested in, but that's how
Yeah,
it's going to be for everyone. Yeah.
yeah. No, I love it. I love listening to them, but lately I've been really pulling away from that and going
Yeah.
it's like I don't know the Bible, and I don't know Catholicism that well. So I've been really hitting formed a lot lately.
Mhm.
I'm on Lectio Mark now, so I'm learning about the Book of Mark. Wow. It's
Is
like,
that with Brant Petrie?
no, it's the same guy that did. I'm terrible with remembering names. The same guy that did Lectio Prayer. I think the same guy that did Lectio Mary.
Oh,
I think. I forget. I don't know. It's
all that stuff from the Augustine Institute's pretty solid. So you got 2 thumbs up from Father Seitz.
no, it's great. I mean, it's yeah. Just going back, like I hate saying humbling myself, but there's definitely a humbling myself to go back to what's best for me. And it's so weird. Like even while I know it's the best for me, I'm still like, oh, but I want to be up here. And it's like, no, you're not. And you know where you're happy. You listen to a video and you're like, sorry, I am like really excited by it. And then I go to a higher video and I get excited for the other people. It's not the same. I'm not really learning anything. So yeah. Anyway, Laura, first time
Yes.
talking to you.
Sorry?
It's the first time talking to you.
Yeah.
So thank you. Like I really like over the years, like listening
Uh-huh.
to you talk to like Pastor Paul and stuff has been great for me. Like
Oh.
you're not the only one, obviously, but as a Catholic, that
Uh-huh.
like you were influential and a good influence. So
Oh, well, that's really sweet. Thank you.
yeah, no, it's really cool. All the different people that God kind of put in front of me to kind of get my attention. It's like right here, boy.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a good thing he's taking care of us.
Yeah.
I've got like 2 randos who reached out to me on Discord this week. They just want to talk. It won't be recorded or anything. It's just
Oh,
sort of,
interesting. Is it people you didn't already know from talking to on the Discord, or you kind of know them?
yeah. They're just kind of like,
Oh, just total randos, huh?
yeah, like,
Neat.
I mean, I'm sure they're hanging around BOM and they see this random priest there, and
Yeah.
they said they've got questions about Catholicism. So it's like, well,
Yeah. So
I
you get a
happen to
Zoom with
be an
them or something?
expert. You know, I try
I
and
know
say that
a thing or
humbly,
two
but
about that.
yeah. So
Or
anyway,
at least I should.
yeah, I'll be in the way, be in the way for them. Speaking of people getting in the way, hello, Corey.
Ah, hi, Corey.
I'm good at getting in the way.
Yeah. Oh,
Hello.
so this is number 2 that you just had?
Number 3,
Number 3.
all daughters. So I'm going to live to be 100 or something.
Oh, that's the same as me.
They're great.
Mm.
Nice.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, this is a small break. I just want to jump on and say hi.
Good to see
Phil,
you, Corey.
I good to see you too. Phil, I heard what you were saying, and I want you to know I see you as one of those people that I want to be more like.
So
It's like,
Alan will be here eventually, but I got tired of waiting.
Hi, Emma.
hi, Emma.
Hey,
That's the cool thing, Corey, about meeting different people and establishing relationships with people. And I'm saying the obvious here, but it's funny. It's obvious, but to me, it's not obvious. I'm going to keep reminding myself that I see other people's gifts and their gifts help me. You know what I mean? Like it's even people that are grumpy or people that just seem sad all the time. Like there's so many lessons with people. It's just so awesome. You know? It's just great.
It's almost like we all serve different functions in the same body.
We are many parts. We are all one body.
Okay, can I mention something else that makes me angry? Maybe it's like
Yes.
that.
Is it that?
Who triggered
Yeah,
you?
it was that. Also, can I just point out how brutal Mark is being in the comments? He says, "Oh, we're only not boring now that Corey has joined."
I love
Mark,
Mark.
that's
Listen,
Well,
Mark,
we're not
by your
thinky,
own
talky
words, I
people.
shall condemn you. If something's not worth your attention, don't give it your attention.
Go get yourself some coconut water, Mark.
I think Mark is wonderful.
I think Mark is one of those people that's like never happier than when he's grumpy.
You know, you need people who are able to fight back and
Yep.
be honest, brutally honest, even if you disagree with everything they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of disagreeing with everything they say, hello, Xander.
Hello. Here to disagree.
Here comes a new challenger.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh,
I,
and yeah,
we
and then
should
Mark
make a
also
snip-
says that Mark says that's not what he's like when he's brutal, which I believe. And actually, Mark, let me tell you something. I was at the DC airport waiting to go back to Chicago, and there was this drunken man bothering people who were waiting for the flight, and he was just like staggering around, getting like really close to people and talking nonsense in their ears. And he was doing it to me for a while. He's doing it to a lot of women, and everyone was too nice to just like shove him or whatever. And I thought, if Mark Lefevre were here, he would do something about this, right? I think he'd handle this guy.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, that's actually so one of the things that I've been really, really trying to think about is the martial spirit, right? Paul just did his
Mhm.
video on the Boniface option, which that was my first time hearing
Oh,
that
yeah.
term, versus the
Oh.
Benedict option and like his Rod Dreher and Bethel and all these people. It's hard to figure if like I'm solidly Team Winsome. I guess that's a thing, but like there's also a martial spirit. Like, what does that look like? I don't really know. That's one of the things I'm trying to figure out. Some people just, I don't know. There's a way to be too peaceful, probably, right?
Yeah.
Too passive.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, it's about when somebody crosses a boundary that they ought not cross, they need to get the signaling and the feedback that they're doing something wrong and that that's not acceptable.
Mhm.
And if you don't give that feedback, they're just going to keep on doing it because obviously they started doing it, which means they want to.
So if we're talking about at the levels of violence, though, and at the levels of things like culture wars or cognitive warfare, spiritual warfare that involves people, it's a little bit harder to put those words into, what do we do, right?
Well, I mean, you don't go straight for just hitting somebody, right? There's escalation. And then in theory, if you're in a properly constituted society, that there's a hierarchy that can adjudicate between disputes, So I know that there are some people, let's say in the United States and Canada, who think that all cops are bad. And that our court systems are completely corrupt. And there's definitely going to be corruption because it's impossible to have a world without corruption. But I think it's better to have a system that doesn't work perfectly than no system at all. Because if there's no umpire at the baseball game, you just got people arguing over foul balls.
Alvin Ball.
Isn't there
Versus
like
one guy who can just say that was a foul ball, and even if he got the call wrong, we can still live together and cooperate.
isn't there a system of escalation for Catholics? Like if you're or in the
If
Bible.
your brother sins against you, you confront him first,
Mhm.
and if that doesn't work, then you bring along 2 or 3 other members of the church so that they can witness to it. And if that doesn't work, then you bring him in front of the church and you exclude him as you would a tax collector or a sinner. So
That was
it's
today.
right in
That's if
Matthew's
he doesn't
gospel.
agree with the church.
Yeah. That's if the church finds the assembly finds him to be at fault. So,
Today's reading.
Yeah,
Mhm.
today's reading.
except for me,
Except for
Oh,
What happened to you?
I had this 15th Sunday after Pentecost instead of the 23rd Sunday of ordinary time,
Oh, is
which
that a
is
TLM thing?
the old calendar. The
Mhm.
old calendar. Yeah. So we had
Mhm.
Jesus raising the widow's son at Naim.
Hmm.
So that's what I got to preach on today.
That's cool.
All
How'd
right,
you
well,
score,
I
Elijah?
got to clean the kitchen, but I'm going to keep listening.
See
You get to
Laura.
clean the kitchen and be
Good
of
to see
service
you,
to God and neighbor, Laura.
Exactly. God
Thank
bless
you.
you.
See ya.
I was doing an intercessionary prayer session earlier this evening, and the topic of demonic strongholds came up, and I hadn't heard that that phrasing before. And I was wondering but everyone else seemed to be familiar with it. So I was wondering if Father Eric had anything to say on demonic strongholds or.
That's the first time I've ever heard of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I've heard of that in reference to there's a
Sounds
I
like
don't know what different translations say, but there's where is it? Somewhere in one of the Pauline letters, he talks about giving us the power to tear down strongholds, and I've sometimes heard people reference that in relation to spiritual warfare. So I don't know if that's it.
Yeah, sounds like it might be.
I'm gonna Google it.
That sounds like the sort of thing that you shouldn't get involved in unless you've got a wise and experienced counselor, spiritual matters guiding you in these things.
That's what it was.
It's not for what's the word? It starts with the letter D.
Lay people?
No, not lay. Lay people can actually, in a certain capacity, act as like exorcists. So.
Yeah, so this is I feel silly now because it was one of my favorite verses. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds, according to the ESV.
This is an RSV stream. That or the doing, nothing else.
I'm a creature of habit. I've got like too many translations of the Bible now sitting around because all you people turned me into a nerd.
When you became Catholic, you had to update your Bible translation collection.
I did, and I don't even know what I've only got one Bible that has like all those crazy director's cut books of the Bible in it, and I don't even know what translation that one is. But yeah,
you mean like the things that everybody except the Ethiopians think are apocryphal, or
no, coming from my Protestant background, I started out with my little NIV corner, like this is the correct version. I didn't know there were other versions. I thought NIV was like something they just put on all the Bibles. And then I found out that ESV is the extra spiritual version. It's like, okay, now we've updated. That's like the reformed weapon of choice. And then onward and upward into RSV more recently.
Yeah.
So, but now I have something to compare it to. And now Jacob is throwing all this Hebrew out there, and all these Orthodox people are throwing Greek out there, and I'm like, well, I know nothing.
Any strong opinions about the NRSV?
I think you ruined the Psalms when you put it into gender-neutral language. I think you ruin everything, but especially the Psalms, because it's like, happy the man who walks in the way of the Lord. Oh, that's a prophecy about Jesus, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would not, Jacob wouldn't like that, but Jacob isn't here, so he'd go ahead and not like that somewhere else. Happy the one who walks in the, it's just bad English.
Yeah, trying to throw in
human.
everywhere.
Happy the human.
Makes English weird.
So that's what I think of the NRSV. I have an NRSV. It's useful to me because it has the final cut of the Bible, right? Because not only does it have the deuterocanonical, but it's got all of the stuff that only the Ethiopians held on to. So you've got
That's
the
cool.
Book of Jubilees and all of the Enoch books and the Prayer of Manasseh and 3rd and 4th Esdras and 3rd and 4th Maccabees. So I've got that on my shelf. I never look at it, but it's there,
It's cool to
And
have.
that's nice. Yeah.
It looks cool on your bookshelf. People can see it and be like, oh, this guy reads weird stuff. So he must be smart.
It's right next to the RSV Interlinear Greek English New
Nice.
Testament, which is a really great book.
Ooh, nice.
Where actually would be a good place to get a copy of the Book of Enoch? Because I went to look for this weirdness, and the only copy I could find on the internet was by some guy who was, I don't know if he's a Christian or not, but he was basically a big giant volume of a bunch of stuff that's not accepted by any church, and it just happens to include
I'll show you what
some
I've
of the
got.
deuterocanonical.
This New Oxford Annotated Bible.
Ooh, fun.
Fully revised
And very
4th edition.
With
An ecumenical study Bible, and it says with the Apocrypha, but you can interpret that however you want, because in addition to the deuterocanonical, which are accepted as canon by all Catholics and Orthodox. It's also got those bits. Yeah, I should be able to show it to you here.
So it's everything that anyone has ever called Bible.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun.
It's got Oxford in the name. I think the Anglicans are pulling over a fast one on you.
Point is I think they've got the Book of Enoch in here. Or the Books
What
of
is it?
Enoch.
What was it? The new Oxford what?
Hold on. Wait a minute.
Dun, dun, dun.
It might not, actually. Now that I actually look at the table of contents, it's not in here. I'm sorry. I have nothing for you. But this is a cool book. It's all right.
I'm sure it looks really great on your bookshelf.
It does. Right next to the Ignatius Catholic Study Bible,
Nice.
which is the best. And you should definitely buy one of those.
I've got one of those for New Testament with isn't it Scott Hahn who writes the commentary?
Oh, yeah. Scott Hahn and John Bergsma. The
Yeah.
dynamic duo of American Catholic scholarship of the 21st
You
century.
need that because I keep needing a study Bible for assignments.
Was that Ignatius Study Bible?
Ignatius Catholic Study Bible.
And that counts as a commentary, right?
Yeah, it's got extensive notes in it.
Okay. I need to use commentaries for my assignments every so often. And I always just end up using whatever's free on Bible Gateway.
Would they accept a Catholic commentary as a legit commentary?
Listen. I could make arguments. The commentary is the important bit. They wouldn't accept the translation.
It's just the
But-
RSV.
Nope, still. They only take, to make things easier for them, they only take 4 different translations of the Bible for assignments. ESV, NIV, and I can't think of the other two. NASB, which is what I use for it. And the last one I can't remember. But that's pretty good. That's 3 out of 4. That's enough
Nice.
to pass. Yeah, the message.
We switched from different kinds of computer things to different kinds of Bibles.
And both of these are all put together by nerds.
Well, we could combine
Exactly.
the two and talk about our favorite Catholic websites or apps. So
I was gonna say usually 2 different kinds of nerds, but when you get the blessed Carlos Acutis, it's a little bit different.
Bringing them together. Bringing worlds together.
One nerd to rule these 2 specific things. Of all, I can't think of the rest of the phrase. I feel so bad now. And Heaven's not helping at all. Because she's
And the
reading.
darkness bind them.
We're close enough.
Josh says Scott Hahn explained Mary to him. Same. Very much same. Love Scott Hahn.
I was in seminary for 1 year with Scott Hahn's son.
Ooh.
I never got to meet his dad.
Aw.
what was his son like?
He was
Please say
tall and
something
skinny and pretty nerdy. So
Okay.
yeah. That actually is a profile of very many seminarians that I have met.
Pale.
Yeah.
That's a pretty standard model there.
Yeah.
Try to
So
get it
are
on,
most
this recorder
seminarians?
somewhere.
Sorry.
What, Xander, you were going to ask about most seminarians?
Are most seminarians tall or short?
Well, so here's what it is, right?
Are there more?
Homeschooling, right? Homeschooling, that's what, maybe 5% of the population?
Mhm.
Maybe.
Oh boy.
Takes up like 25 or 30% of the population in any given seminary.
That's interesting.
So
Yeah.
you just get a
Right.
lot of homeschooled folks. And there's 2 types, right? There's one where it's like, oh, you were homeschooled? And the other one is like, oh, you were homeschooled.
Oh yeah.
So which one was that?
You were social enough. Remember, I told you stories of my neighbor, like the one family at church that literally had zero social skills because they did like home church, but specifically, or not home church, homeschool, but specifically just those two. Like not even like a co-op. Just like they don't do anything social. So when I thought of homeschooling, I thought like, oh no, you literally have no ability to talk to someone your same age. So you at least were better than that.
Well, I mean, you could have a lot of children and then they have their siblings, you know.
Yeah.
It's not
So
quite
they'll
the
be
same.
super weird in exactly the same kind of way.
Exactly.
I've
Funny
fallen
enough,
into
actually,
both. I've definitely
Did you
fallen
see
into
that?
both categories. As
Now,
a
there's a
admittedly, the
difference.
other homeschool group did have like 14 kids and like anywhere between like I think the spread ended up being like 20, some either 30s or 20s, down to like 11. Which at that point you actually rotate because the oldest become like essentially co-parents. So you can have them come back and they're like uncles, but they're really your brother or sister. So that worked out, and they were very well put together. Again, because their household was enough for like a small city, so
Because
that worked out.
not everybody who is has been homeschooled, which is a mode of education, is a homeschooler, which is a personality type.
Correct.
Hmm.
So there was a guy in my class. Everybody was convinced he was homeschooled, but he went to a public school in the Twin Cities.
Nice.
So he was a homeschooler.
He
but
was a
not
homeschooler, but he wasn't even homeschooled, right?
No excuses.
So
That's great. I don't know I don't know where this is coming from, but I've somewhere in the back of my head that like noble families used to like send their firstborn off to the academies to take over like the family, regime or whatever, and the secondborn would always go to seminary.
the
So like,
secondborn going to seminary, that's basically correct. The firstborn might not actually have to get any education to take over the family business.
Depending.
Yeah.
And the third figured out, businessman, whatever it is.
I mean,
always
that's why the Scandinavian countries had so many Vikings. It's because they had no land to give to their inheritance. So it's like, okay, you guys go out and figure it out,
Go
And so
find stuff.
they just pillaged England and France. That's how they managed.
And all the way down to, of course, all the way down to Sicily. If you go to the
Well,
Normans.
yeah, and sometimes Vikings would also get hired by like Byzantines
Yeah. Girl of Ranging Guard.
as mercenaries.
Which is always a fun picture to think. I always love the idea of like the Normans in Sicily invading like Rome and being like, wait, what's going on? And like I want to say they equally invaded Rome and like the Islamic State below them. And it's just like the Vikings are just showing up in the middle of the Mediterranean.
Hmm.
I always love that.
Well, they made it as far as Newfoundland too, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely nuts.
I think they mentioned there's like excavated stuff in like Nova Scotia. So they thought they actually got that far down.
Yeah, just lately they think. I don't know if it's like 100% yet or anything, but yeah, they're talking about that too. Yeah.
Fun guys.
Fun guy. And it was all because of climate change back then too, I heard.
Huh.
Yeah. It's because
Oh.
their region cooled down quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
And winds became more temperate and better for farming. So yeah.
See it?
Phil, was it you that was talking about how there's holy wells up near where you live?
Yeah, like where I grew up in just outside of Truro in Bible Hill, there was a holy well there, Holywell Park, that when the French who kicked who out first? I forget if it was the Celts or the French made the holy. No, the French made the holy well there. That's where they baptized their babies. So I started researching holy wells, and there's one at a monastery in Monastery, Nova Scotia, that has a holy well that is blessed, and that you can do. I think I'm talking out of my butt now, but I think you can do baptisms there, maybe in the Catholic Church. But
Wait, so if it's blessed, does that mean the water coming out of the spring is considered holy water?
I'm probably using the wrong terminology here, Corey, but I
Of
This
course,
sounds like a lot of popular piety there, which I'm not going to say is a bad thing. What I'm going to say is that if you're going to do any baptisms there, you need to make sure that you've got the paperwork for that done.
really
Father,
I baptized 3 people last week in it. I mean, you're telling me I did something wrong?
I'm
Some people
picturing
just
Father
grab the
Eric.
ground, drop them in.
Father Eric will roll up in his Pope Mobile with his clipboard. Hey, don't sign here.
No, seriously, when these aren't recorded, it's a giant pain in the butt because you guys don't understand how brilliant the sacramental system of the Catholic Church is because the baptismal
work in it.
records are ground zero for all of your sacramental history, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Emma, at your home parish, your marriage to
Mhm.
Colin is recorded in your baptismal certificate.
Oh, I always wonder where they record that.
So they like send it back to the home parish.
Mm-hmm. And then the parish that you were married at is also supposed to keep a record of your marriage. So we've got like a
Okay.
redundant system of keeping track of
Well,
marriages there.
It was
Yeah.
really easy. They do it for both of us, right?
At the
Like, it
parish
would be on his
that
back-
Colin
his
was
reception
received
certificate,
into the
too.
church. Yeah.
He
yeah.
was received into the church at the same church we got married at, so that one's easy. For
That
them.
was easy.
Yeah.
I do love when we were trying to figure out whether or not to do a conditional baptism or not. We had to figure out like, okay, was I like correctly baptized? I was like, I mean, my grandfather did, so we just call him, and he's like, yeah, no, I followed protocol. You're good, and they took it.
Anglicans
So-
know how to use the Trinitarian formula.
Yeah.
They can.
Yeah, I
they
think
can.
it's generally they're fine. Especially he's pretty high Anglican.
That does. Oh, high church, yeah.
Yeah.
High church isn't going to mess with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so anyway, my baptismal records were not well kept
Oh no.
at the cathedral in Rapid City, South Dakota. And so when I started getting into seminary, they had to like kind of reconstruct them. But the good news is that my dad filmed it, or rather he taped it, if you want to be really technical about it. One of those old RCA models that you'd have up on your shoulder there. And so we've got it. Like we've got the tape. And I watched it and the deacon did it correctly. So
So
no
I'm
worries
hearing
about
that live streaming baptisms might actually be a good thing.
Mine was live streamed.
great.
Keep
You're also
that
an
weight.
adult, so you can testify to it yourself. So it's a little different. All of my memories of my baptism come from video cassette.
Yeah.
Yep, same. I was
Yeah.
super glad too. My super non-traditional, non-denominational descended from the Jesus Revolution Church back in California actually gave us a certificate. And so when we were going through RCIA, they were like, they really care about their paperwork here. And I had to call my mom and be like, hey, did I ever get like a certificate when I was baptized at like 10 or 11, whatever that was? Yep, here it is. Thank goodness my mom is good at holding on to stuff.
Is the word
There you go.
groovy
Yeah.
on your baptismal certificate?
The
Is
word
the
what?
word-
Groovy.
I think it's far enough descended from the Jesus Revolution that the spirit of
Okay.
not a ton of like strict theology is there and just general openness, but
Yeah.
without
You're not from
Hippies.
Vineyard, are you?
I'm not. I'm from Orange County,
Okay.
California.
Because I think that came off of Jesus movement as well. So
I did. I mean, like I grew up in the places where that movie was filmed, though. Like
oh
Greg
wow.
Laurie and the Harvest Crusade.
You mean
was
like
a
direct?
regular?
Okay.
Yeah. I've some of my good friends from college actually became Christians at Harvest Crusades.
Oh wow.
And I learned recently that, like, I don't know a ton about my parents' history, but my dad was telling me, he's like, oh, have you seen Jesus Revolution yet? And no, he doesn't talk about this stuff super often, but apparently that was kind of the thing that got him and his brothers serious about their faith, was basically the Jesus Revolution. His older brother went out and discovered it and was brought it back to the family, which was like kind of marginally Episcopalian-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's part of my heritage. Just learned that like a couple weeks ago.
There you go.
That's very
We will
cool.
integrate your distinctive features into our own.
That's a Borg thing? That sounded very Borgish.
That was an attempt at being the Borg. Yeah.
Yes, I got it. I'm a nerd. I did it.
I appreciate the sidebar conversation on personalities too. Father Eric's being super Jordan Peterson over here. What do you say? Jordan Peterson, elitist with the big
This
five.
is a big five house. We use the big five here. That's it.
That's good for balancing and integrating, but
Oh, Colin, your time has
MBTI
come.
is better for building teams and understanding personal impulses.
I think it's time for Colin to share his unified theory of MBTI and temperaments.
Oh gosh, what are you saying?
Okay.
Maybe Colin just needs to get his own YouTube channel where he gets to share his own unified theories on his own platform, and then monetize it with T-shirts or something.
I want Colin to do that. So I can
Sounds
nod.
fun.
I know what you're talking about.
Simple life. Doing the dishes. What now?
There's personality conversation, and I'm teasing
Oh,
you
and you're
about,
trying to throw me in.
about coming up with
Oh yeah, yeah.
synthesizing MBTI and the 4 temperaments.
That was fun.
The problem is that I don't really understand Myers-Briggs, so
So for funsies, I took a personality class. I was part of my generals, the program I'm in. But I found that generally, if you have a lot of work to do, oddly enough, adding work that is entirely unrelated is a great way of like staying motivated. So I chose after the class to just like, because there was an Opus Dei guy that came for our the church staff, because I'm a part of a church staff, not of my church, because number one, they weren't hiring, and two, it's nice to work with not your church, so you don't know all the internal drama of like your priest. It's just weird. So I like that I'm at their church. But anyways, he brought in a Opus Dei guy for our spiritual retreat. A great guy, and he talked about temperaments. And so I decided, like, for the next few months, I'm going to learn everything I can quickly. Not like she can research. I just like swath Google, just everything I can find. But just gain as much research as I can on what are temperaments and what is MBTI. And it's interesting stuff when you get into it. Admittedly, MBTI is, well, the interesting difference of the two of them is that you can definitely see the temperaments came from like a couple thousand years of like development, rather than like a top-down scientific. Because if you try and make it scientific, you're gonna fail. People try. I know the guy I was talking to definitely tried. The sources disagree as to what counts as what, and what personality is what. You're not going to find a unified understanding of what's what. You're going to get a general, basic, kind of feel your way through. But I think it's more open to narrative. Hello. So more open to like a feels better for a story. It feels more accessible. MBTI is the thing where the surface level of MBTI is one thing. The theory behind it, which is Jungian depth psychology, is very different from it, actually. And if you get into that far enough, you will very quickly get into like, I'm pretty sure this is one step removed from astrology kind of people. Like your divine personality function, I heard before. I like the general theory actually a lot, and it has some interesting psychological conclusions from it. But you really gotta be careful at some point, because at some point people just go off the rails of like, if you understand how to type your guy, you would understand everything that ever happened to them. And like sometimes we'll throw disclaimers out, like obviously this doesn't take into account experience. This is just like your basic temperament, and then they'll just chuck that out the window. It's like as strong as like that. I'm not racist, but.
No offense, but you're the worst person ever.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah. I think at this point you're trying to explain this entire man's like life based off of he was born and there you go. But I found it very, very entertaining. And interesting.
So is there?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, I've definitely met people that have gone off the rails with it and have really just dove into the whole Jungian archetype pool of things. But so like if you're trying to get on a team or if you're trying to build a team, you don't get to make people balance their personalities out like with the big five. You have to deal with them where they're at. And knowing what somebody is like. So like I work on tree crews a lot, and I don't get to choose my coworkers, and often they're pretty uneducated. I would say the majority of them barely graduated high school or didn't show up at all. These are working class men, and it really helps me not misinterpret somebody, because like I get an ENTJ coming at me, which is like a Donald Trump type or an Andrew Tate type. They will bulldoze over everybody, and they are delusional, but they're effective. And they do make interesting leaders. I don't know if I would say good ones, but you can get a lot done with an ENTJ. And if you pair them correctly with somebody that can balance them out when you're trying to put them together, like you can make it a very effective team. It's kind of more like viewing people like chess pieces than trying to be like, hey, you have this wrong with your personality. You should do this more. Like on the big five, you're balancing it out. You have like, you're like a plate, and you're off balance to one side, so the marble on the plate just keeps rolling off that way. But when you're trying to just get through the day and you don't get to pick who you get to, you just show up and you have people, it will help you not misinterpret somebody's aggressiveness as a threat. Like sometimes you have to really, like you guys were talking about fighting earlier. Yeah, sometimes you have to generally be worried about like, is this guy about ready to punch me in the face, or is he just kind of just doing his thing? And
Right.
or is this guy like is he just playing? Like I have a personality that'll as an ENTP, some popular ENTPs in movies would be like Jack Sparrow, Iron Man, things like that. They'll tease their way out of a fight or tease their way into a fight. And often doing it with a very jovial or trickster personality that is going to invite you into like, okay, you want to play? Let's play. Let's come on, let's get into it. It's going to be fun. And like, it'll joke around with you like that. But that's not very helpful at home. Like having that person, you can't fight with your wife like that, or your girlfriend, or your loved one. So that's where the big five comes in. And so to rectify like my bad, or like the non-effective parts of my personality when I'm trying, the things that aren't going to help me be a better father, better husband, better, all these things, that's where the big five is definitely great for improving. But for identifying who somebody is and who you're actually going to be able to communicate with, because bottom line is like, I have a very hard time communicating with certain types of people, and then other types of people I'm just fine, because I'm a very logical, reasonable, and practical person. If you can prove me, if I say something and you can prove it wrong, I'll go with you all day long. I'm not going to try to push through just because I'm right. You know what I mean? Like I'll bow to it as long as you can make a case for it. But I'm not going to do that if I don't see any logic or reason behind it. Whereas an ENTJ will do that. He will simply be like, no, I'm right, you're wrong. That's it. That's end of story. Like,
here comes our favorite ENTJ right here.
Okay.
I love it. Well, that is the funny thing about the history of it is, as I understand correctly, the whole temperament system came from like, you got a bunch of monks in a monastery. They're going to be there for the rest of their life. You probably want to like know how to like interact with them in a nice way, not piss them off all the time. And so that's the general idea of the temperaments, is just like, specifically, this is why I like this about the temperaments. This is why I was so interested in it. The temperaments constantly have a virtue focus. So MBTI is going to have that whole functioning and what you're good at focus. Big five is going to be generally based off like your tendencies. But temperaments is actually, they have a very extensive understanding of like, if you're dealing with a like sanguine personality, right? You need to recognize that they're going to be very, very quick to, they're very kind of pleasure seeking. They're very shallow. And if they can get over that shallowness, they have this incredible openness to people, and they have this incredible, and so people suggest, for instance, that like a lot of saints are going to be sanguines, because if you can just get over that hump, you have a lot of great things for you. While as if you're a choleric, your biggest thing is patience with people. And so it's interesting because of all the personality systems, it is focused very heavily, or has a background. It has a history of virtue, which is why I wanted to see if you could kind of put temperaments and MBTI together. The answer is, in my opinion, kind of,
Yeah,
but not.
I agree.
Not. I haven't found a rule. I have a setup now where I think it's correct, but I haven't found a rule as to why yet.
See, I
So.
think I've been able to put the temperaments and the big five together
Ooh, fun.
successfully. So your cholerics, right? Your cholerics are high in conscientiousness and high in extroversion, right? So they're conscientious, they like things orderly, they like things done well. They're high in extroversion, they're willing to go out and make things happen. They see opportunity all around them. Your melancholics, they're high in conscientiousness and they're low in extroversion. So they like things orderly, like to have things a certain way, but are less likely to work their way. They're going to be slower at responding to these things. Your sanguines are high in extroversion and they're low in conscientiousness. So they're very people oriented. They like people, and they're not going to have that desire to have orderly environment. And then your phlegmatics are low in extroversion and low in conscientiousness. They're just
along for the ride.
They're just
along
here.
for the ride. Yes.
They're the hardest in my opinion. But that's just.
But the nice thing about the big five is that you could have somebody who's just kind of balanced on conscientiousness and kind of balanced on extroversion, and they don't actually have to fit in one of the two. They can just so the level of precision that you can get. I like that. You don't have to say I'm a choleric. You can just say I have actually a very balanced temperament. I've met people with very balanced temperaments. Everybody likes them.
Yeah.
Well, it seems
Well,
like
that's the
people
hope and
tend to use it
ideal
for
is-
two different kind of purposes, right? Like there's the utilitarian view of looking at personality, which is team building or trying to do something specific or trying to create a scientific theory maybe. But then there's also this question of narrative too, which is I'm trying to think of if that's a totally separate thing. There's obviously utility in understanding your life as a narrative, but maybe that's where it connects back around to where Jung was talking about. I'm reading Planet Narnia right now. It's about how C.S. Lewis brings in the medieval understanding of these sorts of questions, where they basically related it directly to astrology. Like it wasn't indirect. That's how they understood it. It's like the influences of the planets were a way to understand these things, and I guess it was like common in the church.
No. Thomas Aquinas has a treatise on basically astrology.
What do you guys think about? Or I was just going to say, what do you guys think about? Like most of the smart people were involved with astrology. Like even Isaac Newton was an alchemist and knew about these types of things.
And the way I think about it is that this was the way that they were. This was sort of. This is going to sound an awful lot like Peterson, but he does it via alchemy. But I think astrology also kind of goes in the same way too. Is that they had this sense of these, fundamental patterns of nature, things that we are kind of born with, and that we kind of just have to grapple with that are not in our control, right? It's not just clay in our hands. And they intuitively mapped that onto the stars.
One thing that people forget about in the whole, in ancients' perspective, is that they didn't have clocks, they didn't have smartphones. The stars were how they told time. You'd look up at the sky and you'd be able to know what time of the night is, where you were oriented, but it also was your calendar. If you wanted to know what month it was, you would look up at the sky and see where the moon was in location to the other stars. So given that the stars is what told you when to plant your fields, the stars are what told you when to hunt and when the hunting season was over, everyone's lives in a very real sense was run by the stars. So in the same sense that we sort of perceive experts or the expert class as maybe having an exceptional ability to divine the information, it was a very easy place to take that to the next level. Is if I as a peasant can know when to plant by looking at the night sky, surely an expert who's spent their life can do it, can know about the personalities and the kings and what's going to transpire on a larger scale or in more detail.
Is that more real, or is the calendar on my iPhone or a paper calendar more real? Would you say?
That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Because one's kind of creating a matrix. Like, I mean, it's an unreal representation of something that people saw realistically, like real, like reach out, touch it, materialistic in the sky, and then we like turned it into a fake version that we could all, have around us all the time.
I mean,
Or maybe a different way to phrase that would be, which one is more magic?
There you go. I like that.
Ooh, I like that.
Which one is more of a simulacrum? I think you're right that it's that our calendar is like a simulacrum of the
Because
stars.
Google could decide to go back to year one and have a 10-month calendar with 10-week days or whatever, and they could just do that via programming.
French Revolution, let's go.
Yeah.
Well, and there's
Make a living
also
out of that.
when we're talking about astrology and we're talking about alchemy, I mean, everybody's probably going to think the same thing when I say this, be like, oh, he brought up sacred geometry. But the number system and how they relate between the two, I mean, anybody can watch Randall Carlson's after school thing. And I mean, bottom line, that's a 2-hour video, and it makes a darn good case for the fact that there are numbers that pop up over and over and over and over, and they seem to be a description of reality. That's why they pop up over and over, is they're representations of real things. And we kind of, in my opinion, we lost that when we took something out of the real and put it into the calendar, the iPhone, anything like that. Is that now it's like the Matrix is like 3 layers deep now because it's like 3 layers removed from tangible. It's
like abstracted out of its context, right?
Yeah,
It's like it doesn't exist with all the other stuff around it that puts it in its proper place.
Yeah. So I mean, totally. Like I was watching a video the other night, and it was an animation video where they were moving the background instead of the object. The reason they're doing that is because that was an old way of filming. You would move the background instead of the object because the object was hard to move, like a car. You would move the background instead of the car, right? So you have but the original animation of moving the background instead of the car was a simulation as well. So now we have like 3 layers of simulation, and I'm seeing because the only reason the animation is doing that is copying the older style of video, and so there is no car or anything like that. It's just that I guess what I'm saying is everything is a simulation now of something that used to be real, and I don't know how. Like you were talking about how many people looked up in the sky for how long and recognized that as their calendar, recognized that as their orientation to where they're at in the world or anything like that. Is that embedded in our genetic memory at this point? And we've kind of moved, we're outside of that now. And so we have kind of this lost in the matrix feeling.
So I have a question about this. Maybe it makes sense or not. Are these things beliefs? Are they rituals? Are they intellectual tools? Or are they all three?
I was going to say all three. Certainly. But
they can certainly involve all three. I think, and it's helpful to clarify too, because when I first started learning about this stuff, I had a little freak out moment because these are all things associated with ignorance and or evil or the occult, right? So I'm like, okay, I shouldn't be looking at this. But I guess, and Father Eric can correct me, but my understanding is when it starts to go off to the area where you shouldn't, it's kind of what Mark just said in the comments there. Like when you're starting to use it to manipulate meaning to your own ends, or you could talk about things like sorcery and divination. Like you could think of that as a way to take what is real and stuff that's still good and useful, but manipulate it in such a way that I don't know. This is where I'm going to fall apart in my ability to describe it. But once you start to use it to try to accurately predict and control the future and control other people, then that's when it starts to get bad, right?
I think I was going to say Tolkien in the beginning part of his book talks about seeking power, and if you're seeking power with it, it's awful. If you're seeking control with it, it seems to take control of you very quickly.
And in Aquinas's treatise on astrology, the first point he makes is that the influence of the stars cannot override human will. it can influence the passions, it can influence certain events, but it doesn't have a fatalistic influence on there. That's like point number one. This isn't what I'm talking about. We're not puppets of forces beyond our control.
And that is the other thing, is it doesn't trump theology. That's one of the big things, is you don't, this stuff can be very, very, so I had a guy explain a really interesting concept of that. A lot of the numbers in the Bible are very specific, and they're not trying to like be exactly factual. Hey, just so you know, this is exactly the amount of fish Jesus pulled up with these, giving like the 3 things to Peter, right? Just so you know, this is very important. That it's like, no, it's all
53 large fish.
Yeah. This is all symbolic. This is all important symbolism, so on and so forth. And apparently, a lot of the early fathers, as he was telling me, so take it with a grain of salt. But as I understand it, they would focus on things like that and be like, okay, this is important symbolism. This is important symbolism. But an important factor is that's not the basis of your theological understanding. That can be a nice like accent, like you make something, when you make a cake, the entire cake is not icing. Like the icing is good, but the rest of the cake is more important. Unless you have a really bad cake, we've all eaten one of those. But so that's the other important thing, is if you try to manipulate people, and if you try and make this your understanding of things. Oh, looks like I got Father Eric thinking.
Well, I just I think God is actually in charge of everything, and it was entirely possible for him to put 153 large fish in the nets at the end of John's gospel in order to make a point for all ages.
Yeah.
No, exactly. No, that's the other thing, is it's one of those cases of it doesn't have to not be an actual historical fact. It's just that's maybe not the most important way of considering it.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, but it is possible to overconnect things.
Yeah, also true.
Yeah, but at the same time, we can't deny certain things that are related. Like I get into this all the time. I was raised Protestant. Well, I say Protestant, but it was a simple Bible church. Everything was taken literally. Like there are 6 literal days of creation. There are 6, the flood took place like 6,000 years ago or whatever it does when you go back in time. And yes, it was a literal worldwide flood. That's what wiped out the dinosaurs. That's what I was told. And there's a lot of things like that. And I mean, a lot of people believe that to be true. But I don't think that's the point of the story. Your faith is not based on how much you think that the Bible is literally true. That's what I was told, that we have to believe this as literally true, and that's what you're trying to defend. So if somebody puts a gun to your head and was like, "Hey, was the world created 6,000 years ago?" And if you don't say yes, then that means you're calling into question. You're denying the historicity of the Bible. The authenticity or the authority of the Bible. And it's like, I don't think that's the route where you're supposed to go with the scriptures, because I mean, these things are ancient stories brought from ancient times, and I am not an ancient person, and I barely have an understand. I mean, the further back I go, the weirder it gets. And I know that math is involved somehow, because the further back you go, that is one language that like everybody recognizes 2. Right? Everybody recognizes 3. And if you put the 2 together, you get 5. So, I mean, very primitive peoples can get that. And we're still using that system today. So I think that's a method that we might be able to use to understand some underlying tones in scripture and things that it's kind of like seeing an image of the crucifix. Like I've seen that image since the time I was a boy, but I really didn't understand all of it until I started looking at the icons and seeing like the skull of Adam and seeing the crack in the earth and seeing, all the other the saints and like, okay, so take Stephen when he's killed. And he looks, I believe he looked, and if I say something incorrect, I'm so sorry. I'm not learned. I'm barely learned. When he looks up, he sees the kingdom of heaven. He says, "There it is. I see it. I see it." And everybody it seems like everybody's like, "Well, what is he talking about?" And then somebody kills him with a rock. But did he literally see that? Is he literally is the kingdom opening? Like, is he seeing? Is he having a vision? Did he just get hit in the head too many times? Like, what is happening there? Like, because I mean, that to me matters when I read that story. as to like what is that? What like, is it a place? Is it like, can I take a rocket ship and get there? Like that's what I love about Jonathan when he said that. If some of it started clicking in my head, coming from my old view to my newer view, is that he said, "What about the ascension?" He's like, "Did he go through the 5 layers of the atmosphere? Did he pass the moon and Mars on his way? Where did he go?" And so I think those types of things, understanding the way that ancient peoples thought. And actually my Orthodox, you guys were talking about Bibles earlier, my Orthodox study, or actually I guess it's the Bible I think both of them have it. The Catholic Bible I was given at catechism, it had in the beginning a map of the way that the ancient people saw the world, and it's like a dome with the stars embedded, and then like underneath is Sheol and everything. Once I saw that, I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense. It was like, and I was like, I had a map finally of like what these people are talking about, because it did not correlate with my understanding, my modern materialistic understanding of what this world is and how it's laid out. It just does not correlate at all. Yeah. And it's very hard to look back at the saints, look back at the early Christians and understand what the heck they're talking about, because it just is so disconnected from my current world. And so I think certain things like, like I said, getting into certain things, they all touch the occult, like as far as alchemy, sacred geometry, and, several other, things in astrology or anything like that. And yeah, if you seek them for power and you're seeking an MBTI system so you can manipulate the humans around you, yeah, it's going to go very badly, very quickly for you, I would think. But I think there's a reason why, like, okay, so take this for instance. It's thought that came to me just yesterday. I was out pruning a crab apple tree, and I was walking underneath it, and I hardly ever hit my head. Very rarely. I just don't. I don't know why. Wearing hard hats all the time, I've learned to move a little bit farther with my head, so I don't hit it very often. I thumped my head right on a branch, and right when I did, I've learned to keep track of when that happens, when I make an accident, like a random accident. I'm like, what the heck? I never do that. Or like when I get smacked in the face by a branch. I've learned to keep track of those, and the thought that I had right before that, it's almost as insightful. And all of a sudden in my mind, I was like, I wonder if that's what Isaac Newton thought. Like I did an apple, thump him in the head, and he was kind of like, oh, like that's how I'll explain it. Or like, because everybody's like, no, he saw the apple fall, and that's how he understood gravity. I was like, he had seen apples fall from the time he's a child. Anybody who's ever picked apples, it knows when you start picking them, they all start falling at you and start hitting you in the face and all sorts of stuff. It's really kind of dangerous to actually pick apples when they're fully loaded. But and so like, you get these insights into, I don't know, that may be totally just something in my own head that just is garbage and shouldn't even be brought up in conversation. But it seems to me that, yeah, there's these real weird synchronicities and things that happen. And I think if you start paying attention to them, it can almost be like, I don't know, maybe some like God whispering in your ear, getting your attention, calling attention to a thought. And you'll misinterpret it as like, my first impulse was to be like, damn branch, like, you just, what the hell, but then I've learned to like, to stop and be like, what was my thought right before I just got hit in the damn head? And it actually, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm off on a thing in my own little world and I'm seeing things that aren't there. That's very, very possible. But I don't know. I think like you were talking about magic earlier. And I think that I think the old world believed in magic, and I think that, I don't know, for me, as I become Catholic, I just became Catholic earlier this year. I was confirmed, and I haven't really had a chance to talk with a lot of my fellow Catholics about stuff like this. I'm very hesitant to, because I may get be like you're up to something bad here,
Yeah. Well, and if they don't need to hear about, like, there's all sorts of people who just live life well, and they don't need to know about any of this stuff.
Yeah, my dad's one of them.
We may as well, like just don't disturb them. There's no need to.
In the personality types, you'll almost always peg those people as ENFPs. They are good by nature. It seems like they have a happy-go-lucky thing, and they do good. I've actually thought that it might be integrated with left-hand eye dominant, left-handed. Is that they're naturally, I believe those people have because of the crossover in their brain, I think they might actually have an inclination towards naturally being good.
I can see it, but I am right-handed. So what can you do?
There you go.
I think there's something real serious about that left-handedness thing. But what you were saying
It's a real
before,
thing.
Yeah, what you were saying before, though, that was really cool about the way you perceive things. I had a totally mind-blown moment because, growing up Protestant, the very first little Bible verse that I memorized growing up was John 3:16, right?
Me too.
So it's probably true of a lot of people. And I went back and read John 3. I've been trying to spend some time in John recently with, I see the world completely differently now. I also became Catholic this year, and Pageau has been transforming
like a
the way
whole
that I see
stream
everything.
full of recent converts.
I was
and
going
me
to
and
say,
Emma.
we're all, other than him, her, and Father Eric, I think we're all converts, as I understand it.
Yeah,
It's
I'm a
great
convert
stuff.
Catholic. I have
Nice.
like 2.5 years.
But check this out. In
Yes.
John 3, it has the part right before John 3:16 where he's talking to Nicodemus, and he says that you cannot see the kingdom of heaven unless you're born again, or born anew, depending on which translation you look at. In RSV, it says born anew. So it's like, no, it's born again. It'd be evangelical. But I always interpreted that, and it was always explained to me as you can't go to heaven unless you're born again. Like, you will not see the kingdom of heaven. That's not what it says. I checked multiple translations because I was so mind blown when I saw this. It says you cannot, like present tense, you cannot see the kingdom of heaven unless you are born again. And my mind goes immediately to Romans 12, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And what that means to me now is exactly what's been happening over the past couple of years listening to Pageau. And then we're talking about it also in the context of the Ransom trilogy that C.S. Lewis wrote, how it's all about changing your perspective in such a way that gives you the ability to see things that are actually there, but you wouldn't be able to perceive otherwise. And to me, I almost think that makes way more sense, that's what Jesus meant when he was saying that, right? And it links in then with what he was talking about with the wind and the spirit and all of this. It's here. The kingdom of heaven is here. What you're talking about, like with the apples and stuff, and those moments of synchronicity, that's perceiving something that's actually there, and that I think we're actually supposed to be able to see to some degree.
I think the more you become aware of it, the more it anybody here hunt or anything like that? Like, the more you do it, the more, there you go. Like, the more you do it, the more you start to see signs of animals. Like, before you didn't see them. I do it all the time with my trees. Like, I'll look up in a tree and I'll be like, oh yeah, it's got a broken branch. There's a beehive right there and a crack in the trunk. Some people look up and be like, how in the heck did you see that? It's like years and years of looking at canopies, like just years and years of staring at it. And all of a sudden it starts to make sense. It reveals itself to you. And the more, like I said, the more you pay attention, and as an ENTP, I've had to learn to keep my mouth shut. That was one of the biggest, it's hard for me. It's very hard, to not say something and to just stay quiet. But the more I've done it, the more I've seen God, that impulse to be like, oh, I need to say something about this, otherwise they're going to do that. And it's like, nope, just stop, let it be. There are things that work around you, and you be the tool when you're meant to be the tool. Don't try to always be. When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, but wait for somebody to swing you. Or not somebody, but wait for God to swing you, and that, because, I'll go around, as soon as I learned about some of this stuff with Jonathan Pageau and Jordan, I was like, I've been sold a bill of goods by the Protestant church. This is not what, wait a second. This isn't what, the ancients are not believing what we believe today. They got Mary, Mary is a big thing for me, because I was always told, my mom to this day is like, nope, she's just a woman in the story. She was a good woman and that's it. And we cannot worship her. That's idol worship or something like that. And it's like, and I'm like, no, it's there's so much more there. And I can't even get past that first conversation, and I was running around to my family trying to be like, no, we're believing wrong. And it was brought about out of an anxiety that I was like, what if we don't all end up in the same place? That's going to be really scary. I don't like that future where my family is not ending up in the same place. Because if we don't believe this, if we don't understand the same things about what the kingdom of heaven is, and we don't have the same understanding about what Christ was talking about, we may not end up in the same place. And I don't know what it looks like on the other side of life, but I don't know. I took psychedelics. I've smoked a lot of weed, and I don't know. I know what it feels like to be totally disorientated. But the faith I've had is knowing that wherever I end up, it'll be correct. Like that, I am going before a right and just judge, Jesus Christ, and whatever happens to me, that is correct. I mean, is my understanding on that correct, Father? That we will be where we're supposed to be.
Yeah. It's hard to see how it would end up any other way. So
Maybe for you, for a lot of other people that are raised differently.
Well,
Yeah,
that ties
yeah.
back into what Phil was saying at earlier on when I jumped on, like that I love so much is it's not required of us to understand. One of the things
Yes.
that's given me a lot of hope is that, you know, I don't try to convince my Protestant friends or family to become Catholic, because I know while I was Protestant, I received God's grace. I know it because, you know, I can't unsee what I've seen. And so I have faith. I don't know how it works. I think that, you know, the Catholic Church probably sees a lot more that is correct, but I also have a very different perspective on what the church is. And what Phil was saying before kind of hinted at, Christ never asks that we understand things necessarily in a particular way. He asks that you obey. And, you know, like, do the thing. Understanding might come. It might not come. It might never come. But, like, you're transformed by the act of obedience. And, like, there's, you know,
this is why what you just said about your Protestant upbringing is part of the reason why I am a giant fan of Vatican II and will be for as long as I can manage. Is Vatican II gave us the ability to talk about what's going on in ecclesial communities outside the Catholic Church in a non-binary way. Prior to that, it was all binary: Catholic, not Catholic.
Which makes sense for quite a long time.
Right. And what Vatican II gives us is this ability to talk about degrees of communion. We can talk about how there are elements of truth and sanctification, which are properly Catholic, which these other ecclesial communities share in with the Catholic Church. And so there's these real elements of the true church that are in these communities. God does that. You know, that's the work of the Holy Spirit there. God does that out of mercy for all of his children. So yeah, God really does do good things in all sorts of circumstances. He can even work through a bunch of hippies in the Jesus movement. That's how powerful he is.
Amen.
Yeah, sometimes I just wonder if sometimes the reason it's all done is simply to kind of kick us in the butt a little bit. I'm just like, listen, they can do it. Like, I'm working with them now. Get your crap together.
God has a history of doing that.
Yeah.
Has anybody watched Vanderklay's recent video uploads on mysticism?
I watched
It was
one of them,
super good.
and I
Yeah,
just thought
I haven't seen it.
Christian mysticism is conformity to Christ. There it is.
For me, it was weird because I thought the mysticism equated to all the astrology stuff that we were talking about before.
Nope.
So, like, it was helpful.
The mystics that you will meet in your Catholic church are the pious old ladies who pray 4 rosaries a day and go to
Right.
church every day. Those are the mystics, right?
Keeping California out of the Pacific Ocean.
Does anybody familiar with Sadhguru on YouTube? He's a Eastern Indian guy, Hindu or kind of Hindu, something like that. Anyways, he when I was going through my journey and trying to delve in, I was getting into Eastern mysticism after I discovered there was a whole path. Anyways, he said one time, he said somebody is a mystic just because somebody else doesn't, or somebody's only a mystic because somebody else doesn't understand. And like meaning that pious lady that you're talking about, she understands things that somebody else won't, and that's what makes her a mystic. Is that she can possibly articulate and also put into an understandable way things that are pretty hard to understand coming when you're not raised in the church or you're not raised with this mindset, and it's getting harder and harder to talk about it, I think. But that's why I think what you're calling what you're understanding, Father, of a mystic is that's, I think, a good way to view it. But I don't like, that's what Vanderklay was kind of talking about, is when you hear this, like, he was talking about Russell Brand, and he considered him a mystic, and that, but Russell is floating in between a lot of different things, with his Eastern Lent and his mod. Yeah.
And I felt like the main point that Vanderklay was trying to make in that video was, this is how people use the word mystic. And that's 100% how people will use the word mystic. I'm not gonna run away from that. But the Catholic Church, we have our own vocabulary. We have our own way of using these things. And when we talk about mystical theology or ascetic theology or those sorts of things, what we mean ultimately is conformity to Christ.
So would you consider Padre Pio to be a mystic?
Absolutely.
Oh,
There
yeah.
you go. That's what I was kind of getting at, is there's like those figures in history that live very strange lives and had very strange things happen to them. And that's what I think that when Vanderklay is talking about a mystic, there are people that have led extraordinary lives, and they had extraordinary things happen to them. And I think for those of us that, live in our little corners of the world, sometimes we're like, well, how do I, like for me, the idea of the stigmata is very recent. Like that's a very recent thing. Like I don't know much about it. I, saw it alluded to in several horror movies growing up, just like everybody else did, but it seems very strange, very weird from the background that I came from. But inside the Catholic Church, as far as I understand it, it's a long-standing understanding of that this is something that can take place in somebody's life.
Yeah.
I don't think they need to be extraordinary people either. There's a lady in the parish named Flossie. Like, she knows what I'm thinking before I'm thinking it, or what I need to hear. And it's just, she's just passing me by. I'm like, good morning, Flossie. And she just says something. I'm just like, this again? And I talk to people about it. And it's like, it's just Florence. It's just Flossie. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, do I get a personal mystic? What is happening here?
Somebody at my parish gave me some advice. I finally met with the men's group here. It was so great. And one guy who he has 9 kids, and like he was telling me his life story about he was a terrible person who didn't deserve all the blessings he's had later in life with 9 kids, and how his 9 kids are doing so well. He told me, as a young father, the best advice he could give was make friends with some nuns and get them to pray for your kids every single day. And I was like, that sounds totally right. Who was it? It was on somebody. Oh, Jacob. I was on Jacob's stream a few days ago, and I told him in the comments, I think nuns are in the top 3 of my favorite things about the Catholic Church.
That's very cool.
That's true.
It's very cool.
Alrighty. Related. Oh.
No, we're ending this, Colin.
No, okay.
Father's got to go to bed.
Night, Father.
So anyway, Josh,
Yes.
thanks for joining us.
Thank you for letting me on.
I don't know if I've ever met you before, but welcome to the club.
Good to meet you, Josh.
Sunday Night Convert Club, I guess we can call this that.
Yeah.
And God bless you all, and take care.
Yeah.
Thanks, Father.
Thanks.
Hey.
Adios.
See y'all.